So last week, or a week ago, Levi Morgan put out a video about the best way to draw your bow. And he was hoping to, I guess, dispel some people's murmurings, I think he said, about sky drawing. And more or less describe what it is, why he's doing what he's doing, and I guess justifying why pointing or aiming your arrow, drawing your arrow like this on an upward angle, and then coming down, setting your shoulder into the shot. So he, a couple minutes into the discussion, or not discussion, his own video, he says this clip that I'm going to play over myself, but basically that
it could probably improve your shooting drastically, you know, and I know there's guys out there, and they're saying it for good reasons, for safety reasons. You don't want to be drawing at the sky, because if you pre-release an arrow, you don't know where it's going, right? But for accuracy reasons, you can't draw at the target. You can't draw directly to target. Okay, I get it, if you got a bunch of kids on a Genesis inside of a gym, they can't be drawing at the lights. But outside of that, like, look, if you're out practicing, if you're shooting a tournament, and you lift your bow here and draw, you're not gonna get DQ'd, right? It's not against the rules. It's how everybody draws a bow, because it's the most accurate way to shoot when you get your shoulders set correctly. When you start looking down the line, seeing everybody drawing very similar ways and setting their shoulder in very similar ways when you're shooting against the best in the world, you start to understand that, hey, there's something to this. It's not just we draw up in the air for fun, just to be rebels and go against the rules.
I understand that there are legitimate reasons for not wanting to, you know, draw into the air. You don't want your arrow going and sailing out of the range, or you don't want kids shooting the walls or the ceiling. And then he goes on to say, but, which invalidates everything that he said before, it's, you know, we got to be accurate. We got to work the best, or as best as we can, to be accurate. Battery saver mode. Super. We have to do what we can to be as accurate as we possibly can. And he also went on to say that most of the pros, if you're in a tournament, not in a hunting situation, you kind of want to be able to produce as little movement as possible. But when you're in a hunting situation, you want to kind of draw on the animal. But when you're in a tournament situation, everybody is drawing over the target and setting their shoulder, and then drawing in this fashion and somewhere over the target, and they shouldn't be getting called for sky drawing. The problem is, when you look at some of the pro archers and how they said it, they're not doing it the way he's doing it in the video. The way he's doing it, and I can't do it here because it's against the rules, what he's doing is drawing the bow so that the, let me back up so you can see where my arrow is. Now, right now, my pin is pointed at the, well, that doesn't really work, but if I drew this bow here, like this, and draw the bow and came down, if I let this arrow go, it's going to either hit the backstop, which is 65 yards down the way, or it's going to leave the range. So there are going to be people in the comment section that say, well, my range isn't set up that way, there's nothing around my range. I'm not talking about you, or talking to you. There's also going to be people in the range who are going to talk about the infrequency of people shooting arrows or letting one fly or shooting the ceiling, or, you know, my equipment is in good shape and I'm sufficiently conditioned that I'm not going to let one fly and all that. And to that I say, no one comes to the range expecting to be the one to have a negligent discharge, I guess you'd say, because that's what we say with guns. So, but what you normally see, Levi also said that all the archers on the line, there has to be something to it, because he sees all of the archers drawing this way. They're not drawing the way he's drawing, and that's where I have the problem. What they're doing is coming up and down, setting their shoulder, and then getting in on the target. What he's doing is drawing like this. He comes to full draw with the arrow pointing way over any backstop that could possibly be, and if you shoot it indoors, you're either going to hit the ceiling or you're going to hit the lights. And that's the problem. So he also said that anybody who advocates for drawing straight on the target hasn't won anything, And to that I say, that's not the point. The people who are advocating that you draw at the target and not over the target, they don't want their wall, they don't want more holes in their walls, they don't want their lights shot out, and they don't want arrows leaving the range. So he acknowledges that this is a legitimate concern, and then he dismisses it in the interest of accuracy. So that clip that I played,
You know, and I know there's guys out there, and they're saying it for good reasons, for safety reasons. You don't want to be drawing at the sky, because if you pre-release an arrow, you don't know where it's going, right?
that should be the end of the argument. If the range rules say or tell you to draw on the target, you should be drawing on the target. It's just, you know, what are we without rules but animals? As they said, what did he? I probably got the quote wrong, but Ian McShane says it a few times in the John Wick series.
Rules. Exactly. Rules. Without them, we live with the animals.
So what I just did, see, my pin is pointing at the top of the target that I'm shooting at, so if I loose this arrow, it's going to go on the top, and then I settle in. He's making it seem like there is no other way to set your shoulder other than to come to full draw with the arrow pointing in the air, and then bring it down. Whereas most people are doing this. See, they're coming up. They're not drawing on the They're not drawing in the air. They're just bringing their shoulder down into its pocket, and then they're pulling it back. So if you do that, the worst thing that's going to happen if you let an arrow go is it's going to land a few feet in front of you. Like if I drew right now, there you go. It just landed about 5 yards in front of me. If I drew like that, came to full draw, and I let one loose before I get down to the target, it's going who the hell knows how far out, and I'm never going to find it. And for the most part, most people that shoot and they shoot in certain areas, you know, it's not really going to be a problem if you don't find your arrow. The odds of hitting somebody probably not that high. In other areas with higher population density, it becomes a concern. The two clubs that I belong to, one of them has they both have no skydraw rules, but one of them has a muzzle down rule because the club has been there for 60 years, roughly. 60? 80 years. And it used to be farmland all around it, and then developers came in, bought the farmland, and put houses all around it. So now there are houses all around a 32-acre gun club, and now they have to be conscious of making sure that none of the projectiles leave the property. The one that I'm standing in now has industrial warehouses and factories around it. So we also do not want anything to leave this range, and if you point up at the sky or at an upward angle that is above the backstop, the arrows are going to leave the range and potentially cause problems. So if the club or the place that you go to has rules in place that say don't do that, please don't do it. You know, you're not special. I had this argument with somebody on Archery Talk where he insisted that he doesn't need to follow the rules of the range because he is experienced. He takes good care of his equipment, and he doesn't think he's ever going to have a negligent discharge, or whatever you want to call it, a brain fart, and then send one sailing off into the wild blue yonder. And as a guy who organizes events and runs events and had to deal with the repercussions of people doing things they're not supposed to, breaking the rules, etc., I do not like it when people openly say they're going to ignore the rules because they think the rules are stupid. It doesn't really matter what you think of the rules. The rules are in place for a reason. It doesn't have to make sense. But you're still supposed to follow it if you want to participate in that venue. Participation in any venue is not a right. It's a privilege. If you abuse that privilege, then you don't deserve to be there. That's my point.